This is the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. How are you doing today? It's a beautiful Wednesday out here in Tuscaloosa, and we are getting ready for the SEC tournament. Today's episode is going to be very, very special. I am blessed and honored to be joined by former head coach of the University of Alabama, Wimp Sanderson. Coach Sanderson coached here from, 1960 all the way to 1992, serving as a longtime assistant coach and leading Alabama to 10 NCAA tournaments, 5 SEC tournament titles. He made to 9 finals in the span of 12 years as the head coach. So it's a great honor to have him join the program today. It is on the phone, so you're not going to see me here. It's just going to be a photo of Coach Sanderson popped up right here. So I'm just going to jump right into the Coach Sanderson conversation. We appreciate you joining us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. You can tell a friend about the program, The Joe Gaither Show, on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. You can follow me at Joe Gaither6 on any of your social media machines. I'm sorry, this conversation is pre-recorded, so there won't be any chances for you to leave a comment, but please connect with me on the social media machines of your choice. You are watching us on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, so we appreciate you doing that as well. Go ahead and hit share on the program or retweet on the program. We're going to leave you with head coach Wimp Sanderson. This is our conversation. We had it yesterday, Tuesday afternoon, as the SEC tournament was getting started. When we come back after our conversation, we'll talk about Wednesday night sadness and the 2 games that are happening in Nashville tonight.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, Coach. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great.
Thanks so much for giving me some of your time. I know it's a busy week for you.
Oh, it's okay. It's what it's all about, getting to the conference tournament and to the NCAA. So
Yeah, of course.
see how it goes.
Well, Coach, I wanted to talk to you about that, about the SEC tournament and about your time there and kind of what you see about this week with, the current team. The last time I talked to you really about basketball was at SEC Media Day. I was looking up some stuff while I was getting ready for this, and I didn't realize that the 82 tournament that you won was the first time Alabama had won the conference tournament since 1934.
Well, I actually didn't realize that either.
I mean, what a great, almost 50 years.
Yeah, we had we were pretty good in the tournament. The 12 years I was there, we got in the final game. I think 9 out of 12 years.
Yeah.
And that was not easy to do. But I didn't realize that year was the first time. Of course, we had a long time where we didn't have a tournament. I think basketball is a tournament game. Back when I was doing it, you were considered the champions of the SEC if you won the tournament. Some people said, well, it should have been a 16-game round robin. It probably should have been. But we used that motivation with our players to tell them if we won this thing, that we would be considered the champions of the SEC. And then, of course, they'd get a ring, where they all won a ring. And so that's sort of the way that we did it. I don't know. There may have been times that they went ahead and said 2 champions, but it was really a good tournament for us, and we played well in it.
Yeah, what do you think your secret was? 9 out of 12 finals and winning it 5 times, and y'all didn't really. I mean, yeah, you had a couple years where it was neutral court, but you went to Kentucky, you went to Knoxville, you went to Vanderbilt and won. What do you think the?
Well, the funny part about it, Joe, is we never won it in Birmingham. We played on somebody else's home court every game. Every game in the tournaments that we weren't in Birmingham, so we lost it 3 times in Birmingham, I think it was. I think one of the big things for us, for our teams, was that because it's spring holidays, and because you've either had a bad ending of your regular season or whatever, you hadn't played enough as an individual, or this day and time you're not getting as much money as you used to, whatever. I think it becomes a little bit of a mental game. Mm-hmm. And I felt like that for us, we were mentally ready to play. we were excited about playing. And I think there were some teams who had some players on their team that thought, well, if we get beat in the first round, we're okay. We can get to Florida for a vacation, so it doesn't really matter that much to us. And there were some teams who said, we're going to the NCAA tournament regardless, and so they didn't maybe put as much stock in it. We went the other direction and tried to really make our players understand the significance of trying to win this thing and making us a little bit better to get the NCAA tournament as far as our seeding was concerned. And so, we did it that direction. We prepared pretty hard. We worked, changed a little bit of our offense because, of course, you're filmed to death during the season, and changed just a little bit of simple things. And then defensively, we pretty much stayed with what we had been doing, but we did fiddle with our offense a little bit and do a little bit things a little bit different, but not a whole lot. But players win games, but their ability to be ready to play and the coaching staff trying to get them ready to play is big. They win the games, and the credit should go to them, but there are times that they're not ready to play. I had teams that weren't ready to play either, and in some cases. But this particular case, most of the time in the 12 years I had it, we did okay.
Oh, I'd say pretty good, really. Getting to the finals that many times and winning 5 of them. You won 3 in a row, 89, 90, and 91. I've often heard you talk about some of your approach to the end of the year is, I want to back off the guys on the floor, give them some rest. I've kind of felt like, and correct me please if you haven't, this year's basketball team, this year's Alabama basketball team, at least the last couple of weeks, looks a little bit tired. How important do you think it is getting last Saturday to this Friday, this coming Friday, 5 or 6 days of rest in between games?
Well, my feeling was that you practiced hard, but you practiced short.
Mm-hmm.
That whatever you did at full speed. I used to come in and tell them, you're not gonna believe this. They're gonna be in there 45 minutes. We're going home. That's gonna be up to you as the players. If you want to go 45 minutes hard, we're going to the house. And so, to me, that was something that we did that I thought paid off. Our guys really practiced really hard. They were ready to go home because it's been a long season. And I also felt like that they need to be live-legged. And by practicing that way and going so short in the last part of February, in the middle part of February probably, we cut our practices way back. And we like to talk about us being live-legged and our opponents practicing long and hard trying to get ready for the tournament. And tried to put a mental feeling in there with our team that we were ready to play because we were rested and ready to go because we'd practiced hard but very short. Everybody else is practicing a long period of time. So I kind of like that idea, and I thought when we started winning like that, we took every little idea that we used at the beginning. For example, we did not go to the tournament until the last minute. We didn't go 2 days in advance. We didn't go a day and a half in advance. We went the day that we were going to practice. When you get to the tournament and you've been there a couple of days, they all want to see their girlfriends and they're trying to figure out who's going to do what for spring break and all that kind of stuff. And so we just simply waited till the very last minute to go. Whenever we practice, that's when we got there in time for practice. The other factor, we did a little bit different than what we had been doing. But remember now, these are good players.
Yeah.
We scrimmaged. We went up and down a little bit with our team, and sort of rather than go half court, we did some half court work, but we went up and down with our team. And I don't know, and we were winning doing that, so we just continued to do that. We thought maybe that was, since we were doing pretty darn good, we would continue to do it like that. So that's what we did, and the more we succeeded, the more we kind of left it like it we did it.
Right.
It was good.
Coach, when we talked in October, right before the season started, Alabama was picked fifth in the league, and they finished third in the league. Now, they were in first and kind of trailed off the last couple of weeks with injuries and just kind of tough matchups. What would you counsel the Alabama fan base who says, okay, I understand everything that Coach did, changing 3 new assistants, changing all kinds of players, a bunch of transfer portal players. You only had Mark Sears and Ryland and a little bit of Nick Pringle coming back, so you had a whole big turnover. So on one hand, yeah, it's great to be in the tournament. You're not on the bubble. You finished top 3 in the league, but you also kind of lost it right there at the end of the season. How do you kind of reconcile that, or how would you counsel the Alabama fan base kind of wrestling with those
I think
thoughts?
Alabama fans ought to be appreciative of the ability that they had to recruit because they lost a lot of players on last year's team. And the selection process, there's a selection process that you can recruit a guy, but you've got to be darn sure. The word recruiting tries to get him to your school. But the word evaluation is big. Can you evaluate the guy that feel like that he can play for you? And I think the Alabama staff did that. They evaluated the guys that they liked, and they all were darn good. And they're looking for 3-point shooters, and they found some. And so it certainly wasn't a bad year. I had selected when the season started, after we got started in the first game or two, that the record would be 4 losses, be 14-4. And I said about 2 or 3 teams, but it was 14-4, of course, by Tennessee. And the other 3 were 13-5. Every year you have somebody that is a surprise team one way or the other, either surprised that they didn't play as well, or surprised that they play so much better than people thought they would play or what they've been picked. Naturally, the team that was disappointing this year in the league was Arkansas. They were disappointing, and I'm sure their coaches were over being in the bottom 4 of the league. And the surprise on the upside was South Carolina. They were picked, I think, pretty much dead last or close to last, and were able to play awfully well and get the 5th spot, and that was a really good coup for them. So, they're sitting there now, not having to play the first night. They're going to play the winner of Vanderbilt in Arkansas, and then they have to go in and play Auburn. But South Carolina gets the pluses, and I guess you would say Arkansas gets the minuses. Now, the one thing that you have to understand is that each game takes on its own personality.
Right.
There are some nights and some days that you just simply play better. Defense is probably the most consistent. They all say defense travels, and you've got to be more consistent. You can be more consistent if you're better defensively. And I think that's true. I think if you're better defensively, but I think also if you don't turn the ball over is a key. Your ability to offensive and defensive rebound is a key. If you're playing Alabama, then what you're trying to do is run them off 3-point line. And then when you run them off 3-point line, sometimes you give up some dribble drives inside for 2s. But that's what people have tried to do, and it's been okay. In the blowout games that Alabama has had, Tennessee pretty much ran them off of the 3-point line pretty much in Knoxville. They didn't get many looks. In the game in Tuscaloosa, there were 77 threes, 140 and 137. And so in that particular game, Tennessee didn't run them off, but they defended them pretty well. And, of course, Connect is hard to guard, just as Sears is hard to guard for Alabama. So,
Coach, Tennessee's length, 1 through 5, is just so hard to kind of penetrate.
Yeah. So, anyway, those 2 games, they were sort of blown out. And then at the Auburn game at Auburn, which is, it's easy to get blown out at Auburn if you don't really play and don't play to your capabilities. And that happened to them some. And then when they went to Kentucky for their 4th, if you want to call it, kind of mismanaged game or blowout game, Kentucky just shot the lights out. I thought Alabama played okay, but the one kid that went 11 for 11 from the field, twos and threes, and just had one of those heck of a days. And so those 4 games, it was pretty much, not as good as they would like for it to be. But to finish, 13-5, and to finish tied with Auburn for 13-5 after they lost a lot of players, I think it was a good year for Alabama. I don't know what the outcome is going to be. The rumor is that there'll be a 4 seed along with Auburn. South Carolina will probably be a 5. The SEC tournament won't have a lot of effect on where they're placed in the 68. They may be a little bit. Maybe Mississippi State, maybe might go one way or the other. A&M might go one way or the other, based on the SEC tournament. But basically speaking, over the long haul of the 14 teams, there won't be much of a change from the thinking that they have from going to the SEC tournament to the NCAA tournament. So I think that's something that people may not sometimes realize, but it's just you just got to go in and be ready to play mentally in order to play physically well, and you got to play with good matchups and play hard and see what happens. There are always people that try to study and I did that to some degree, and tried to study where everybody was placed, to see what might happen here. You couldn't guess it. You couldn't guess it in 100 years. You try to study it, decide this and decide that. But I think the tournament should be good again. And Sunday afternoon at 5 o'clock, they will announce the NCAA tournament, and there will be a lot of complaining. First of all, everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people will complain about where they are seated, what number they are seated, who's in their group that they're going to play to get to the Final Four. So there's always going to be some complaints by people about that kind of thing. So it should be a good tournament.
Absolutely, it's going to be a lot of fun, and it starts tomorrow in Nashville. Coach, you hit on a couple of things that I've got notes for, and I'll just throw a bunch at you and see where you land. First, you talked about the player that some teams have a good game and don't have a good game on different nights. I wonder about Kentucky. If Kentucky is playing at maximum level of Kentucky, are they the best team in the tournament? That's one of my thoughts that you just mentioned. And then you talked about Alabama's defense. And really, I think Alabama's defense is kind of what it is at the moment. You're not really, you're at the end of the year. You've been working on it all year. I don't know if you're going to get it much better. But in those losses, those road losses, you had double-digit tournaments, 16 at Kentucky, 20 at Tennessee, 15 down at Auburn. What's the key to maybe on the offensive end for Alabama cutting down the tournament? And the last thought I'll throw at you, you kind of touched on it, was Alabama is currently looking at a 4 seed going over to Washington. Can Alabama play themselves into maybe not a 3 seed or a 2 seed, but into a different pod that maybe brings them into closer to Tuscaloosa, maybe a Memphis or a Charlotte, somewhere closer to Tuscaloosa than Washington?
Well, maybe so. They might could get to a 3. I don't know. Joe Lunardi's pretty good at it.
Yeah.
And, so if they won it all by big score, then they might move to a 3. I don't really know. The turnover factor in all the games that I mentioned was big. They turned the basketball. If you turn the ball over 19 times, and I think they averaged 19 turnovers in those games, then you're not only giving up cheap baskets, but you're putting yourself defensively where you commit a lot of fouls, which means you put them on the free throw line, and which is not good, and you give opportunity for them to get easy baskets. I think this one plus for Alabama is that they're a very good free throw shooting team.
Yes.
There's so many. I had several teams that were not. We did not shoot free throws well at times with our team, but for whatever reason, the shooters that they have gotten, they know Alabama knows what they want in the kids that they recruit, and most of these guys shooting the basketball has panned out pretty good. And defensively, they're not I'm sure where the coaches want them to be, but sometimes by the Floridas and them run them off the 3-point line, or trying to. They try to run them off the 3-point line. They give up a little bit of dribble drives inside for twos, but if the team that gives that up can make threes, the last time I looked, threes better than twos. So a little bit with Florida, a little bit with I don't know who else, but Florida, maybe Kentucky. Both of them sort of gave up the two a little bit easier than gave it up to Alabama, a little bit like that, and then felt like they could shoot the basketball from the three and win, provided that they kept Alabama off the 3-point line. So, and to some degree they did. So I think the one plus for Alabama is they've got a lot of shooters. I don't know how many of these guys are going to be okay physically, but they've got 5 perimeter shooters that can shoot the lights out. And sometimes you say, the outside shooting, but it's not 2 guys, it's several guys that can shoot it. And so I think that's a plus for them. Inside they're not quite as good. And but a big thing for them will be offensive boards. Alabama wants to go down and touch the paint as much as they can on the dribble drives. If they don't get anything on the dribble drives, on touching the paint or getting cheap baskets on the break, then they're going to throw it back out for the three, and they're going, they've got guys who can score. So it's they try to play a little bit faster than most teams, and or in the league anyway. And Kentucky has amazed me a little bit. They've not been very good defensively either.
Right.
And they have had some nights where they couldn't throw one in the ocean. But they every time I keep looking at their percentage of 3-point shooting, which I keep thinking is going to be bad, it's always good.
Yeah.
They've got some guys that end up shooting the ball a little bit better tonight than they did the last time they played. They kind of take up the slack for each other, and so that's one of the big keys there. They just do that. So it'll be interesting to see where these. Now the next thing goes is pretty much the announcers in the SEC keep talking about 9-10 people in the NCAA tournament.
We're not going to see that.
And I don't want to really be negative about this, but and I don't really keep up with the quad ones and the quad wins and losses. I don't do that, so I could be dead wrong. I'm looking for me 7 from Mississippi State up, perhaps one more, whoever that might be, to make it 8. I don't think it will be over 8 rather than 9 or 10, and it could be, as a possibility, it could be 7. We'll have in the SEC, we will have the second most teams in the NCAA tournament next to the Big 12. The Big 12 has big teams and a lot of teams, and good teams. The interesting thing that people don't understand is how the schedule has changed since we were coaching. When we coached, we played everybody home and home. And we went to Kentucky. Kentucky came to us. Auburn didn't go to Kentucky at all this year. He got beat by Kentucky at home. So we had that. Now this past season,
it's crazy.
There were 5 teams that you played twice. Now, if you were lucky enough to catch 2 of those teams that kind of were down a little bit, they had been studied in the conference office, you might have your quick four wins there. But you played 5 teams twice, and then you played which is 10 games, and then you played 4 teams on the road, and they would not come to your place. And then you played 4 teams at home, and you would never go to their place. So they trying to talk about the strength of stuff. The SEC is good. It's not as good as it was in the 80s because our schedules were such that it was hard. We played everybody home and home.
Coach, let me pause you right there and throw something at you, because I've been battling a bunch of my friends who are not Alabama fans, and a lot of them are mixtures of Florida State and UConn and different outside of the SEC fans. And I said a couple weeks ago to them, well, the SEC is a good conference. And oh no, it's a weak conference. I said it's been one of the second or third best conferences in America forever.
They've got a lot of players from going pro. Yeah, the SEC,
but even going back to your time, it's been
it's a football conference from people from the outside looking in. But when you get inside of it, it's a good basketball conference, a very good one. And so we've got the ACC's gone down, the Big 12 has gone up, the Pac-12 is gone, Big 10 is good, and the SEC is good. So those are the factors there. Next season, we're going to have 16 teams in the league. And next season, rather than playing 5 teams twice, they're going to play 3 teams twice. And that's a total of 6 games. And then you're going to play 6 games on the road and 6 games at home, which makes it even more complicated, so to speak, or different. So you're looking to see, which 6 do you go and play on the road and don't get back home?
Right.
Which 6 do you play at home and don't have to go to the road and play? So you're looking at that all the time. And next year's conference schedule hasn't been set yet, I don't think. But they go with just 3 that they're going to play twice this year. 5. You try to play your rival. Everybody's rival will be one of those 3 games.
Right.
The disagreement will be who is everybody's rival. It's not very hard to say Mississippi and Mississippi State are big rivals. Alabama and Auburn are big rivals. But when you start and Texas A&M are big rivals. And after you get those 3 big rivals there, then you kind of have to decide.
Everybody wants Kentucky for the money, for the gate money.
Yeah. So you have to wait and see. Actually, Kentucky and Florida have been big rivals because they've both been good in basketball. They both usually have played the last game of the season. So there's a possibility when they decide how they're going to do it, and I don't know how they're going to do it. Then Kentucky and Florida might be a 2-game rivalry there. That might come out that way. I don't know. A lot of times we take a look at it in terms of football. We're saying, who's Tennessee's rivals, Alabama in football, one of their rivals. So is it going to be that way in basketball? So it's complicated to some degree and a little bit different. And I think when they do that, that the next year they kind of adjust the things that they did that they saw that maybe wasn't as good. You have to kind of study. The problem you have is with the transfer portal, you don't really have a great idea who's going to be good and who's going to be bad.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem that you have. You think Team A is going to be good because they got a bunch of transfers. That's what they said this year about Arkansas.
Shoot, they messed that booger bear up.
They got pile of transfers. They're all good ones. Well, as it turned out, it didn't. The evaluation wasn't that good. And yes, they could have beaten Alabama that last game.
Sure.
But so it's being able to find transfers that fit your mold on and off the court. And everybody's looking for a reason to leave. And there are two reasons that people leave their teams. One is, for this day and time, is money, and the second for playing time.
Yeah,
they feel like because their aunt and uncle told them they weren't playing enough that they need to play more. So money and playing time is the 2 reasons that people transfer, and so it gets to be complicated, and I think it's a terrible rule, but it's one we've got. No use arguing about that because that's here to stay.
Well, I've been listening to you and Barry over the last couple of weeks on Inside the Locker Room, and Barry threw out the idea of getting rid of the 1 year, making them sit out a year. And I used to, I really still am really pro NIL, and I do like the portal some, but goodness gracious, if you make them sit out the year, Coach, it'll cut down on so much of the tampering.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. It cut it out completely.
Yeah.
It did that, but
Let me ask you about Mark Sears. How would Mark Sears have...
is, and they're not going to change it, the new NCAA president has come in and said regular students transfer more than athletes.
And that's
so
true.
When he said that the other day, it meant why are we going to do that for the athletes when the regular students do it? And then, they always have a situation about coaches leave, and they do. Most coaches that do leave have to pay a